And the most obvious way to think about this is, what is it that keeps you awake at night? As a committed leader within an independent school, I am betting that there are some nights when you worry about something and it keeps you awake and you're thinking, if I can't solve this, then we can't move forwards. Those are the things which I need you to identify. Welcome to the Independent School Podcast. Thinking and acting strategically is the key to both securing the future of your school and helping to build a more equal and just world. My name's Juliette Corbett. I'm a consultant, speaker and facilitator, specialising in helping independent schools. In this podcast, I translate tried and tested strategy and fundraising techniques into a language that works for schools. So if you're a senior leader in a private school and you want your daily work to feel less exhausting and more strategic, and if you want once more to feel the joy of making the world a better place through education, then you're in the right place. Welcome, and let's get started on this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode. So this week we are looking at our third strategic question. So this is the third episode in a series where I'm covering 6 essential questions that you need to be able to answer as leaders of independent schools in order to be really clear on what your school's strategy is. Both because it's going to secure the future of your school in a rapidly changing environment, and also because it helps you to identify how your school can be successful in its own right and also contribute positively to society. So in the last couple of episodes in this series, we've talked about identifying what your vision is and how to work out what's working in your favour. So this week we're looking at strategic question number 3, which is what's holding you back? Really quickly, before we dive into the detail, I want to make sure that you make the most of the time you invest listening to this podcast. And the best way to do that is to make sure you grab a copy of my free ebook, The Strategic Independent School Leader. It outlines how to answer the 6 essential questions that will clarify your school strategy and secure its future. In the world of business, strategy can be full of jargon, but it doesn't have to be that way. This is a jargon-free tool tailor-made to help private school leaders think and act more strategically. Download your free copy today at www.consultjuliette.co.uk/ebook. Okay, so we're going to be looking at what is holding your school back. And I often call these sticking points. These are the challenges which are preventing your school from delivering its vision. So these are the sticking points which, if you don't address them head on and really transform things in a way which is going to help you to overcome these things that are holding you back, you are going to be constantly restricted and constrained as you try to deliver your school's vision. And the most obvious way to think about this is, what is it that keeps you awake at night? As a committed leader within an independent school, I am betting that there are some nights when you worry about something and it keeps you awake and you're thinking, if I can't solve this, then we can't move forwards. Those are the things which I need you to identify. And just as when we were talking about what's working in your favour, when you're working out what's holding you back, you need to be considering this as a team. So as a senior leadership team, as a team of governors, there needs to be a shared understanding of these sticking points. So it's really important that you do address as a team some of these negative things that are holding you back. Now, these can be quite uncomfortable conversations. I've led strategy workshops where people are encouraged to talk about these negative things within their school, potentially for the first time, or at least for the first time in front of the head and the rest of the senior leadership team. So it's worth thinking about why we go through this process. If we're going to put ourselves through an uncomfortable conversation, let's think about why it's necessary. So first of all, if you don't have a shared understanding of those sticking points that are holding you back, it massively reduces the chance that you're actually going to be able to overcome them. It's only by getting them out in the open, at least within a confidential setting for senior leadership or governors, getting them out in the open and discussing them head on, that you're going to be able to work out how to overcome them. And if you don't overcome these sticking points, you are going to constantly be bumping up against the same brick wall over and over again, and it will be preventing you from making progress. And that is not only incredibly frustrating as a school leader, and I've been there myself, I know that that is just soul destroying to be constantly up against the same challenge over and over again and never quite breaking through to the other side of that brick wall. But by having these conversations, you're much more likely as a team to identify successful strategies for overcoming these challenges. It's also true that we want to be stimulating our creative problem solving. So our strategic thinking and our creative problem solving is often stimulated when we do ask these uncomfortable questions. When we force ourselves to be a little bit more outside of our comfort zone, that's when you can actually unlock some really novel, creative, strategic thinking and ideas about how you're going to overcome these problems. So yes, these conversations can potentially be quite challenging, and sometimes it's helpful to have a facilitator to hold the room, as it were, and to move people through that process. But it is absolutely critical that you are able to answer honestly, as a senior team, what are the sticking points that are holding us back? We're going to be balancing those at all times alongside the positives in the previous episodes. So in terms of the way that you look at these things, I often do the sticking points and the accelerators that we talked about last time simultaneously. That actually helps to ensure that people understand there are positives and things going really well as these negative challenges. So for the negative side of things, for the sticking points, you're looking to identify the internal weaknesses and the external threats. And of course, these are the other side of the coin to what we talked about last time with regards to internal strengths and external opportunities. So the same frameworks that I spoke about last time are useful here. So if you're thinking about internal weaknesses, looking at the different areas of the school in turn and thinking about what's holding you back in each of those areas, not forgetting to think about your school culture as well and whether there are weaknesses in your school culture. Potentially, quite often I see schools where there's an identification that there's an unwillingness to change. And so that resistance to change within a school culture can be really damaging. And if that's one of the key sticking points holding you back, that's something that you need to discuss. And yes, it's hard to change culture, but you stand no chance of changing it unless you discuss it within your senior leadership team and about the challenges that you face. And then the other side of it is external threats. So here, doing the PESTEL analysis that we spoke about last time, looking for political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal threats that you face. And again, that's the other side of the coin we talked about last time, looking for external opportunities. So doing those simultaneously is probably a really much more productive way of doing this work. So the outcome of these conversations, yes, it's a shared understanding of a whole plethora of sticking points that are potentially holding you back. You may not find agreement on all of those areas, but it's an opportunity to look at the breadth of all of those sticking points that are holding you back. What you need to come out of this stage, though, in terms of making progress as we're looking at the next question next time, is I'd like you to identify your top 3 sticking points. Now, this is where we start to look at making tough choices. Strategy is about making tough choices. You cannot do everything. And equally, it's really important that you identify your top 3 sticking points that are holding you back, that you can really address head on and focus your energies, your resources on addressing those. We're going to be making tough choices later on in this process in terms of strategy development, and it starts here, identifying your top 3 sticking points. So that's been a run through, a canter through how to identify which sticking points are holding you back in your school. If you'd like to explore a checklist so that you can make sure you've covered all the bases as you're doing this work, then you can download my ebook, The Strategic Independent School Leader, at www.consultjuliet.co.uk/ebook. Fantastic. Have a wonderful strategic week, and I look forward to speaking to you again next week. Bye for now then. Thanks for listening to the Independent School Podcast, the podcast that helps senior leaders in private schools to think and act more strategically, both because they want to secure the future of their school and because they want to help build a more equal and just world. You can listen in everywhere that podcasts are available, and if you want to catch up on previous episodes or follow any of the links that I've mentioned today, just head over to www.consultjuliet.co.uk/podcast.